Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Paper Mario, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Mario Story for the Nintendo 64. So, last time, we've somehow managed able to continue exploring through some aspects in terms of Jade Jungle, and thanks to the forms that particular Jade Raven jewel thing, we somehow managed to put into the actual statue sculpture of the forms of one of those Raven statues, and so much to the point, we did somehow manage able to take on some more enemies, and in addition to that, speaking of Ravens though, not only did we able to actually come across into ourselves some Ravens, but also Raffle the Raven itself, and as a result we can now able to actually proceed into the actual volcano itself, which does manage to take place in Mount Lavalava, because you know that's where the next star spirit is going to be located. So in addition to that, thanks to the forms of Raphael the Raven, that he did somehow gave us the most important item throughout the whole game, not what appears to be, or should I say the key items as far as you can definitely tell, that we somehow got the Ultra Stones. This means we can now able to actually fully leveled up one of our partners, like we did for the sake of the forms of Soshi right here, so as you can tell that she can now learn the ability to use Tidal Wave. Even though despite the fact that the flower points amount is a bit too much, so as a result though is about the fact that we can use up to like 6 flower points if we somehow use that specific ability, for the sake of Soshi anyway. So yeah, everything else checks out there. So today for this video, if you couldn't tell already, is that we are about to be continuing exploring through the forms of Mount Lavalava, and hopefully, exponentially, we can able to also rescue the 5th Star Spirit, which I'm sure it's definitely possible that if we can able to actually do something like this. So as you can tell, we actually got ourselves yet another badge, and that's what appears to be the Fire Shield, which, well, not to be confused as the forms of the Fire Shield from the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, or should I say Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. Although, relatively speaking, it was about the fact that rather than just having ourselves the actual flame shield itself, so instead you're able to actually use it in battle, so as a result though, it allows us to able to actually protect ourselves from flames, if I can assuming so anyway. I mean, mind you, it has been about 3 days ago since we've last played this game for sure, just because no matter what though is about the fact that recently though, that Pac-Man, he did somehow finally finish up every single aspect in terms of Grand Prix mode in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing for the Nintendo DS version. So, logically, he's now going to be moving on into the mission mode, which as far as I'm aware, the mission mode is going to be pretty interesting on the DS version, at least as far as the terms of the forms of content as far as I'm aware, which I suppose he'll try to mention more about it, probably at some point in the upcoming weekend, as far as I'm aware. So for the most part though, yeah, everything else will be come to expect basically. So anyway, so yeah, a few things I want to talk about this is though, and that's what appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 21st of April today, in some cases in 2025 today, so much to the point for the fact that I get the strong sense of feeling for the fact that for those of you who lived in America, if I can recall, that I believe they've only got about a couple of days left until the pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 in America is going to be on live. So as a result, you have to be fast though, because otherwise though, it will sold out very fast, much like the forms of how it does on any other regions, including the UK. So much to the point for the fact that, you know, I will admit to that right away, getting Switch 2, to me though, is actually very difficult so far, especially because I was expecting to try to able to avoid a lot of scalpers on eBay, just because, yes, much like PlayStation 5, as well as Xbox Series X back in 2020, that there's a lot of scalpers out there. So because of that though, yeah, you get the idea what I was expecting about the fact that how annoyingly frustrating that could be, especially if you really desperately want to go after a lot of items related to Nintendo Switch 2. So, excuse me, that obviously though is about the fact that, yeah, you probably get the idea for that point. But anyway, so as you can tell, we actually meet up with the forms of yet another enemy, and that's what appears to be yet another colored variation of Magic Koopa, except this time what appears to be the red Magic Koopa, which I get the feeling that it does have the exact same stats as the forms of how it does it for the white Magic Koopa. Like, the noticeable differences this time is that he can able to actually increase attack strength, which as a result, or should I say, attack power for certain enemies. So as a result, yeah, we have to take down the forms of red Magic Koopa very fast before the enemies gets a bit more aggressive at one point. So relatively speaking, despite the fact I managed able to realize about the fact that my A button sometimes doesn't seem to like it would be. But anyway, let's go and show off the tidal wave right here. So you have to press the actual buttons as what's shown here. And as a result, yeah, quite a very interesting water effect going on here. But obviously though, it'll do so much damage, like it's gonna be quite super effective against with the those flammable enemies, like the those lava bubbles right there. So, but I suppose it really doesn't matter if we somehow almost died right there, because as far as I'm aware, we are getting very close to our next level up. So either way, so let's go ahead and finish off one of those lava bubbles, thanks to that particular spell right there, which obviously deals 13 damage, which is quite a lot. But I suppose no matter what though, is about the fact that, yeah, as you can tell, with the squads against with the flammable enemies, it's super effective. So, there we go. At the very least, we got a level up, but as you can tell, I'm no longer trying to able to increase badge points now, so I have no choice but to go through, well, flower points, essentially, if you couldn't tell. Because I was assuming if I was trying to go through, hard points, but I'll think I'm also save up for the next level up at some point in the future. To be more specifically, once we continue our progress through chapter 5 and possibly some other additional stuff. So either way, yeah, anyway, as I was saying about the forms of the red Magic Koopa enemy, as we've already defeated earlier, basically though, he does have the exact same amount of HP, and as well as that, also say applies with the forms of attack power as well, and also defense power as well. So for instance though, the red Magic Koopa does have 11 HP, and attack power is 3, and defense power was, well, none other than 0, because obviously though, it doesn't really matter if you use jump or hammer, so everything else will become to expect basically. So oh yeah, at one point with that particular lava bubble right there, sometimes he will do a different attack, where basically though, instead of getting us attacked, but rather our partner gets attacked, which as a result, that, as you can tell, that, Sochi managed able to miss about 2 turns, so as a result though, yeah, something to keep that in mind. Although, then again, unlike in the 1000-Year Door though, that, several of our partners do have their own HP, so I guess it's that. So, anyways, gonna get rid of the fire flower from now on, so just in case that we're not gonna use it against with the forms those lava bubbles, because that will not do that much effective at all. So as you can tell, we actually got ourselves a much more better upgrade for our hammer, which appears to be the Ultra Hammer. So this means about the fact that not only does once again about the fact that our attack power has been increased every time when you use a hammer, but also you can now able to break the forms of those metal blocks. So as a result, if you see those blocks right there, as we somehow destroyed one from earlier, well, we can now able to actually destroy those metal blocks. So this means about the fact that there's going to be some more progression at this point when it comes to likely for Toad's Town tunnels, alongside with the forms of some other areas as well. So either way, I suppose no matter what though, is about the fact that we'll try to go down here, because I get the strong sense of feeling about the fact that there's going to be some other stuff in here though, before we're able to actually continue things on for certain sections around here. So yeah, because for instance though, every time whenever you come across into a the edge point of the that particular lava bed right there, always have to make sure we have to bring out Perry right there, just in case we can able to actually fly across the actual lava. So anyway, so hopefully we can able to try to take these guys down by actually no matter what though, let's go and finish them off with the, you know, Star Storm, because you know, we've already reached our next level up. So yeah, because every time whenever we do level up, then you know, we can able to restore our HP and flower points, and as well as star energy as well. So yeah, everything else checks out there. So anyways, and I do apologize about the forms of awkward commentary sometimes, for all that awkward pauses sometimes, but this is mainly because I do apologize about the fact I keep on belching for some reason, which I already know for a fact I have to drink lots today, and on top of all that stuff though, I recently helped myself to try out the fruit smoothie, which as a result, it just looks so delicious whenever I manage to drink the actual smoothie. I mean, I can definitely easily recommend making smoothies, by the way, despite the fact that you have to get yourselves a blender for it. So, yeah, I have no idea why I'm somehow questioning that, but that's mainly because, as far as I'm aware, I think there are some interesting news I would like to discuss upon before we're able to actually continue things on in terms of Chapter 5. Although, as you can tell, we actually come across into our next badge, which appears to be the Dizzy Stomp, where basically though, every time whenever you stomp onto somebody, like for instance certain enemies, they'll get dizzied after a while, and as a result though, that way it'll do just that. So, although I'm not entirely sure if these star pieces are going to be located in journey forms within Mount Lavalava, but if it does though, and if I do accidentally miss that out, then hopefully I might as well be back for it at some point, if depending on the forms of some situations, you know. And it's also worth knowing for too, is about the fact that you can also use the Ultra Hammer to discover the forms of those flipped panels, which does manage to contain star pieces, so as a result, there'll be a good alternate way for able to try to find these remaining star pieces if you can't be bothered to try to deal with the forms of spin jumping all the time. But I do know for certain for one thing that there's technically one more upgrade we can able to get, but that's not going to be until for later, until we get that certain partner in order able to actually go across with the forms of those dangerous hazards. So, but from now on though, we can now able to actually break down this little metal block right there, so that way we can now able to continue our progress from this point. So yeah, it seems goes all pretty smoothly as far as the forms of that particular part itself is concerned. So anyways though, oh yeah, there's also another thing else I'd like to point out, is that I get the feeling, actually though, is about the fact that we've only just got about let's just say roughly 697 days before Sonic the Hedgehog 4 movie is going to be on its way until 2027, that is, especially concerning for the fact that it is so ridiculous about the fact that we have to wait for so long until Sonic the Hedgehog 4, the movie, is going to be on its way, alongside with the films of The Legend of Zelda, the movie as well, and also same applies with the films of the Angry Birds movie 3, so generally speaking, I was about the fact that you get the idea what I was expecting for able to know about the fact that sometimes waiting for certain sequels and some new films, especially, can take a very long time to make, and also trying to release at the same time, so yeah, we'll go for Good Mario right here, so just in case we can able to upgrade him to learn the final move for Good Mario, which appears to be the multi-bonk, which it functions pretty much the same way as the forms of Power Bounce, basically, except the fact that obviously though, Good Mario does have the ability to, well, you get the idea for this point, so anyway, and as far as I'm aware, that I, surprisingly enough, managed to able to come across that super block on my first attempt after jumping off of that particular zip line, which is kind of interesting actually, because I was assuming if I was going to miss at one point, but thanks to the forms of that particular, well, shiny light, that actually signifies about the fact there's our opportunity to able to actually try to jump at the right time, so that way we can able to actually meet up with the forms of the next super block. So, pretty cool. So, anyway, that's that. So now let's go ahead and... oh, jeez, we're about to get chased by the forms of this very deadly, spiky stone thing, which you can either just try to able to run away from it, like I just did right there, although I did manage to able to test this out on myself on the original cartridge version of the game. Basically, though, is about the fact that if you want to make yourselves a little bit easier for you, like for instance, though, if you missed something and if you want to backtrack for a while, and just to ensure for the fact that there are certain badges you missed out, well, you can able to actually also use bow to able to try to able to actually go in transparent, and as a result you don't have to worry about getting hit by that particular spiky rolling thing, which it does have its name by the way, but I already know for a fact it's, like I said before, it's been about 3 days ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, so anyway, so as you can tell, the hammer does so much damage now, so this means about the fact that at this point in time, is that the actual hammer ability is going to be much more powerful than ever will be, especially because, well, it's a good thing we've already did manage to able to already equip the Power Plus badges and what have you, which, again, I was assuming if I was trying to able to actually go for Defense Plus or anything, but I might save that for later on, just because no matter what, though, we need to take care of the forms of some other situations, like the forms of certain enemy encounters with all that, you know, secondary attacks when it comes to likely for jump and hammer especially as well. So yeah, you get the idea about that. So either way, so let's go and jump over to that particular fire bar again to receive some more coins. So just to ensure for the fact that if you really want to keep on spending on that particular special course with that particular spell thing during the course within chapter 2. So yeah, I have no idea why my tongue is actually curled up in some form or another, which, yeah, I do apologize for that. Commentary is a little bit slightly iffy sometimes, but oh well. Alright, so, oh, nice. Oh yeah, there's also another thing else I'd like to point out as well, I guess, is about the fact that up until next year, that we already gonna be expecting to get, you know, Toy Story 5 on the big screen. But apparently though, what I've also realized about the fact that there's gonna be even more news updates in terms of the forms of Toy Story 5, it may look like that Jessie is gonna have a big role this time, which I get it because of how the fact that ever since in, well, she first appeared in Toy Story 2, of course, and then she gets, like, some more role on screen, during the course of in Toy Story 3. But for some odd reason, though, in Toy Story 4, that she was in sidelined throughout the majority of Toy Story 4, which I felt was a little bit too baffling to me. But let's just see about the fact that if Toy Story 5 were able to actually get more screen time for Jessie the Cowgirl, so just in case about the fact that after all, that we still have no idea what the plot is going to be all about. Like, we still already know for the fact that it's going to be toys versus technology, basically, because of the forms of that particular, a whole bunch of army of Buzz Lightyears and during the course of that particular teaser, as was shown ever since in during the forms within some time in 2024, if I can recall correctly. Well, mind you though, it has been quite some time since we've last mentioned stuff in relation to the forms of Disney Expo analysis or announcements, I should say. So because of that though, yeah, I get the idea for that point. So anyway, and there's also another thing else I'd like to point out as well, is that, unfortunately though, the latest amiibos, specifically though, not only based off from the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom amiibos, for the sake of the forms of one of those, you get the idea of one of those characters in particular in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, for instance though, we have ourselves, Sidon, and Raju, and Yonebu, and Timlin, which I think is what it says anyway. That obviously though is about the fact that those 4 amiibos in one pack, or should I say 4 separate amiibos, is going to be roughly about $30 each, which, oh boy, it's not going to be that good. Whilst meanwhile, for the sake of the forms of Street Fighter 6 amiibos, for specifically for Nintendo Switch 2, they may look like it's going to cost about, let's just say $40 each, which, oh boy, what the heck is going on with the forms of the economy these days, especially because, well, it's already bad enough with the forms of Switch 2 prices as it is, with all that particular, you know, consoles and accessories and etc, etc. So we have no words to say about the forms of how ridiculously well, you get the idea for that point. I mean, sure, no matter what though, my next pre-order stuff, for the sake of Nintendo Switch 2, it will obviously be the forms of, well, you get the idea, Nintendo Switch 2 camera, as well as the forms of Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, just one of them, like I said before. So, either way. And unfortunately though, I was on peril, but luckily, not only did I have already managed able to equip the Power Rush alongside with the forms of the Mega Rush as well, but also that out of nowhere, one of the spirits did somehow manage able to give me attack increases, so, or should I say attack power increases, so yeah, kudos to that I guess. So, despite the fact I was really hoping for more star points, but again, it's often, you know, pretty random sometimes, you know? Okay, so that pretty much does it for that particular segment right there, and it may look like for the fact that there's no way to progress, because it may look like that we seem to reach the dead end, so Anyway though, and there's also another thing I was like to point out as well, is that there's an official rating board has been addressed when it comes to the forms of one of those games in particular. That game in question was Assassin's Creed Shadows. Is going to be appeared on Nintendo Switch 2, which, yeah, it's going to be another one of those, you know, shadow drop moments, I guess. I mean, time will definitely tell, especially because I also did manage able to find out, during the course of the forms of yesterday, actually, that it seems to be more specific than that, we're really hoping for the fact that Nintendo tells fans to stay tuned for a new main Mario game for Nintendo Switch 2, which it could either be 2D or 3D. I mean, I was really hoping for 3D Mario because it's been, you know, 8 years since the last entry in the series, Super Mario Odyssey, or technically 4 if you want to count the forms of Bowser's Fury, thanks to the forms of the re-release of Super Mario 3D World. So I'm really hoping for the fact that it's now finally time for a brand new 3D Mario game for Switch 2. So that means about the fact I get the strong sense of feeling for the fact it's going to be pretty exciting. Well, again, we shall wait and see what happens, and maybe they'll try to save it up for the sake of the forms of, you know, trying to celebrate on a special occasion for, you know, the Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary for this year. I mean, we still on the forms of in April after all. I mean, yeah, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that we've only just got about 10 more days to go until we're about to be approaching on to the next month, which appears to be May. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that it's also worth noting for too, we are getting very close towards the end of spring before we move on to summer, which as a result, yeah, you get the idea for that point. So anyways, there's a recovery block right there, so it's a good thing we somehow come across into that. And then if you go onto the other side, then obviously that will get ourselves some more items, such as Super Shroom, and especially noticeable with Maple Syrup, so pretty swell. Alright, so yeah, I guess there's nothing else I can say about this bit, honestly, because it's like, well, there's nothing we can do on that way, but at the very least we can now able to actually go down the forms of that particular staircase, and as a result, I'm pretty sure we're now on to the final stretch, actually, in terms of Chapter 5. So generally speaking, everything else goes all, like, pretty cool and everything, so... And I should probably point things out as well, is about the fact that I do remember back in the day, specifically sometime in 2013 or 2014, depending on the forms of what the actual, the thing itself has been up to. But I would say since 2013, that obviously though, I do remember that Stuart back in the day, from the likes of in Cap King 74, this is the only progress he did somehow pretty much done with. And then after for about, let's just say, a year later, or 2 years to be exact, well, I would classify as saying it's like, actually I've lost count now, just because no matter what though, it's been a very long time since we able to actually look back on other Let's Plays that he did manage able to did done, ever since around, you know, a couple of years back or anything else like that. So, yeah, I guess that probably explains it, I guess. So, anyway, so since we saved the game, and now we can able to progress onto the final stretch in Chapter 5, so Mario's still approaching. Identified as searching for Star Spirit. Code Red, report to boss. Alert, alert. So it may look like those Piranha Plant looking enemies are up to something, especially because, well, generally speaking, I was about the fact that we've already did manage to thought, you know, a lot of Piranha Plant type enemies in the past, so we can easily try to able to actually take this particular boss down, if, assuming of course we do need to get some bit of advantages when it comes to try to take this thing down, so... Oh snap. There he is. So it may look like about the fact that we have no choice but to take this guy down, so... Yeah, kind of think about it though, that I get the feeling for the fact that no matter what though, this boss is going to be pretty much a piece of cake, assuming of course the good thing we already bring out Soshi with us, although I'm almost assuming if I was trying to bring out good Mario for the sake of tattling, but either way, I'm sure we'll try to do it in the actual battle itself, so either way, time to take on the forms of the next boss then, so either way, and this boss is actually known as the forms of, if I just somehow bring out good Mario, and of course do tattling and stuff like that. Not only once, but twice, by the way, because generally speaking, I was about the fact that there's going to be a lot of things to able to focus on. So, yeah, this boss is called Lava Piranha, because get it, because it comes out the lava, and he does have 40 HP, and attack power is 5, and defense power wise is actually in 0. And he also does have not 1 but 2 of one of those partner companions or something like that, which generally speaking, as you can tell, good thing we've already equipped the ice power badge early on. Especially, I think they'll do super effective damage because, well, generally speaking, if you try to take on the fire-based enemies, when you're able to equip the ice power badge, it'll do so much damage. So, and unfortunately though, I've wasted 10 HP, which is not a good thing, because I was assuming if I was trying to do a pretty good timing-wise when it comes to blocking attacks, but unfortunately though, that's not the case, unfortunately. So, anyway, so all the while, we can also scan the forms of Lava Bud. So as a result, each do have, although one of them actually, I get the feeling for the fact that they do have 8 HP, and attack power is 4, and lastly, defense power was none other than 0. So because of that, and there's also another enemy which I really can't guarantee for the fact that we can able to show this off, because sometimes though, it's all really depending on the forms of the actual specific attacks they're trying to bring us into, so... But either way, oh, that's actually really lucky, so... Even though it's a good thing that we've already used the Super Shroom item, so just in case we don't want to waste our Life Shroom or anything else like that. But then, if we somehow use one by mistake, then we'll try to find another one somewhere, usually in Chapter 3, if I recall, so... So as you can tell, we somehow use the water block, and that actually increases our defense for a short period of time. So either way, good thing we somehow managed able to use that to begin with, because obviously though, that sometimes though, defense power might be a bit much for this particular fight. So either way, and a good thing we somehow use the snowman's doll here, so we can able to do some bit of damage. Well, not all of it, mind you, but eventually at some points that I'm probably not gonna explain about this too much details until specifically later on, so yeah, I definitely need to try to get a lot of practice when it comes to likely trying to, you know, press the A button at the right time sometimes when it comes to blocking, so oh well, no big deal. So we'll just use the tidal wave again. It was even a little bit of a bummer though, is about the fact that much like the forms of how it does it on some virtual console games on the Wii, including Wii U as well, you have to deal with the forms of that particular right analog stick movements when it comes to pressing these different directions for the C buttons, and it's extremely sensitive to the touch. So yeah, like for instance though, if you try to play the Ocarina or something, when it comes to both not only Ocarina of Time, but alongside with the forms of Majora's Mask as well, there are a couple of times though you might accidentally hit the wrong notes, and yeah, we might as well able to find out and see what happens if we decide to do Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, but who knows up to this point, so... Anyway, oh, it looks like he's almost down. Even though I was a little bit too baffled about the fact that we haven't exactly fully restored our... you know, the star energy, but regardless of such though, there goes the forms of Lava Piranha. And we get some more additional star points too, so it may look like we're on 15 right now, so everything else goes all... Oh, wait a minute. Alright, the battle itself is not over yet, because it looks like he's now even much more stronger, and in addition to that, he's now covered in fire, so, alongside with the forms those lava buds as well, so, yeah, we have no choice but to able to try to take him on again, although, luckily though, his HP is basically unchanged, so as a result though, that he's still got 40 HP, and meanwhile in terms of attack power, he's now obviously got 7 attack power, so that's going to be a lot more dangerous than ever will be, and yeah, as far as defense power is concerned, he once again does have 0 defense power, so at least luckily that we, it's a good thing we did manage to able to brought two of those snowmen dull, because obviously though it'll do so much more effective for the sake of this boss anyway. So it may seems to be more the case, and once again he got himself burned for the sake of the phones are trying to be like, I know he's trying to be heroic and everything, but it's just that sometimes he does need to hesitate when it comes to dangerous situations like this one, so... But, yeah. Oh, and also another thing else I would like to explain is that I somehow recently unlocked my next character for Sonic Dash, and that's what it appears to be Sinbad the Sailor, or in some cases though, Sinbad dressed up as like Knuckles, or Knuckles is dressed up as Sinbad, based off from Sonic and the Secret Rings, and so much to the point that that character is actually pretty easy to get, which as a result, luckily, because of the forms of those epic types of characters, well, to be more accurate though, that Sinbad the Sailor was luckily on the epic category, which means that luckily you can only collect exactly 100 of those character cards, and that way you should be able to unlock him no problem, so... Yeah, that's always pretty swell, especially because, well, considering for the fact that, oh jeez, I have no choice but to, use my live stream, so, yeah, I have no choice. But that's okay though, because obviously though, we still got one to spare, which, again, every time whenever we do get a game over, or potentially if we die, then obviously though, we'll automatically use our live stream no matter what. So, either way, time to use Tidal Wave, so just in case we can able to actually stun one of those lava birds and stuff like that. So, logically though, we can able to do just that. So, yeah, that'll do so much more effective right there. So, it's also a good thing that, oh, sweet, we can able to finish him off for reals, thanks to the forms of one of those spirit spells. So, thanks for that. So, logically, Lava Piranha is officially knocked down. And that way, the battle itself is finally properly over without any some sort of interruptions or anything else like that. So logically though, we win for the entire battle within 2 phases. So, yeah, piece of cake. Despite the fact I somehow wasted my live stream, but don't worry, I'll be back for another one for later on, that is. So yeah, now he decides to able to go onto the other side. But before we continue things on, actually, well, there's our 5th Star Spirit. And as far as I'm aware, this Star Spirit is obviously based off from Mario Party 5 Story Mode host, which, get it because, you know, she was in pink, and also I've recognized her hairstyle, so... But it does have its name, by the way, which appears to be Miss Star, so yeah, I guess I totally get the idea of what her name was, so... Yeah, with that said, Chapter 5 is concluded, so... I'm generally surprised about the fact that we've gone for this entire chapter no problem, especially considering for the fact that, well, generally, despite the fact that we have to go for a lot of backtracking moments here and there, but regardless of such though, yeah, we somehow conquered this chapter no problem, so as a result, 5 Star Spirits, I should say, has been obtained, and only 2 more to go. So generally speaking though, we are getting very close to this point, folks, especially, well, considering this is a long, we still got a long trek ahead when it comes to likely for later portions throughout. So, oh wait a second, why can't I save my game? Oh, wait a minute, it may look like we have to escape, because it may look like the volcano is almost gonna be interrupted. So, yeah, we have to get out of here first before it's too late. So, yeah, because we got no choice but to leave. So, now I suppose technically there's actually the last thing I want to address upon something, is that, well, I suppose no matter what though, according to the forms of the rumors out there, which again, despite the fact that I still don't trust rumors and leaks anymore, but regardless of such though, there was that specific article they somehow mentioned that usually between both The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, for Switch 2 editions that is, it may look like that it may not support cloud saves, which I'm like, oh gosh, not those, you know, absence of these cloud saves. Ever since, not only Animal Crossing New Horizons, unless if you have a special application for it, and also say applies with Splatoon 2 and Pokemon games, like the majority of them, likely for Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, and Pokemon Sword and Shield, as well as the forms of Pokemon Legends ZA, well, the upcoming Pokemon Legends ZA, which I'm assuming so anyway, even Pokemon Legends Arceus, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and even especially noticeable with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so yeah, I might get the horrible feeling about this, especially, well, if it doesn't say the forms of not supporting Cloud, then I might be okay with it, but again, it's hard for me to judge on that specific finalized information as far as this is concerned. So anyway, alright, time to bring out the forms of Bombette to able to explode that particular cracked wall, so logically we can able to do just that, so yeah, pretty substantial. And we'll decide able to bring out Sochi back up, so just in case about the fact that she wants to be on the spotlight after, you know, a lot of conversations in between both us and Miss Star, so either way, plus because we've already partnered up with the forms of Sochi throughout the course of Chapter 5, so... And it may look like he actually come across into a treasure chest right there, but we have no time because otherwise the volcano is about to erupt at any point, and we have no choice but to leave. And I suppose, with that being said, folks, is that I'm afraid to tell you, we've almost run out of time for this point, so we got the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64. Is that, logically though, we can now able to move on to the next Princess Peach segment. So I'm very curious to know how that's going to be about. So we shall see. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.